Hi, welcome to This Week in Ames. I'm Susan Guiazda. On today's show, we'll check in with Ames Electric Services. My guest today is Don Com, Ames Electric Services Director. Don, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we always enjoy having you on the show. There's always so much happening with the Ames Electric Services. Tell me a little bit about your job.
Well, within Electric Services, I have several different areas that are underneath me or that I supervise. We have the power plant, naturally, end of Main Street, and we have some other generation that's out on Edison. So that's called the production side of it. We have an engineering staff that looks at housing developments and things like that, that will plan for all of the electric systems in and around new housing developments existing. We have an administration area. The energy guy is part of that. Everybody knows Steve Wilson. We have a distribution division. They're the men and women that basically keep your lights on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so they'll respond bad weather, good weather. When there's an outage, those are the men and women that are out there. And then we have our tech services area, and the tech services, they deal with our relaying, our metering, substation work, and things like that.
So recently we had a rather large outage, and I think it was a good reminder for people of what to do when the power's out. And when the power's out and you notice maybe your neighbor's out or the street's out, people will say, oh, my neighbor called it in, I don't need to do that. But that actually is kind of a myth.
Correct. We have a fairly sophisticated software package that as people call in, and there's another piece to this I can talk about, but as people call in, it registers who called in, where they're located, what feeder, what piece of wire they're on.
Where they get their electricity.
Exactly, how it flows into their house. And as we get more and more phone calls, this software package can say, well, Susan, your power's out, my power's out. The common element between our houses may be a transformer 3 blocks away. And so if we get 10, 15, 20 phone calls, that software can narrow down the first place that we'll send our crews. And they'll go check that transformer, for example, and see if there's a problem there. If that's the problem, they'll focus on that first, get it hooked up, and both of our lights will be back on. If you're the only one that calls, the system will say, okay, maybe it's Susan's house. Well, maybe it's the block that she's on, and so then we would maybe look at a pole or some other piece of equipment. So long story short, it is important that if you call in, that software can help identify. The other piece to that, and this is really good information for people that either move or come to Ames, is when you register for electric service, water service, and things like that, it's a great idea to give us your cell phone number. We don't use it to text. We don't use it to contact you.
We don't sell it to anybody.
We don't sell it to anybody. But if you have that information, you can simply dial with your cell phone, and immediately the system will say, I recognize your phone number, and that phone number is assigned to 502 Carroll. And it can immediately then say, if this is the place that's out, press 1. You press 1, and it basically answers all of the questions.
And it also gives you the opportunity, if you're visiting a friend, and it's not the address that you want to report, you can report that other address.
Absolutely. It may say then, if this is not the address that's out, press 2, and then it will give you an opportunity to record a message. And then you can say, my friend's house is out at 515 Clark. And then it'll leave a message, we can go back and then tie that into the system.
But until you've located the problem, I was trying to explain to people, you can't reroute power until you have isolated the problem area and taken it sort of offline.
Correct. Everything that we do, this is not like getting a shock out of your outlet. So when there's a power outage, we try to identify where the problem is, but at the same time, the line workers, the men and women specifically in our distribution area, want to make sure that they've identified the problem. So we are very direct, very particular in how we look at the system. So if there's a line that's out, they do what's called patrolling, and they want to make sure that there's no other tree branches. They want to make sure that there's not a car that maybe hit a pole that may have an electrical wire. So they travel the entire route from point A to point B, first make sure that all of that is safe, and there's a lot of communication that happens between our line workers and then the power plant, so that they can identify where the people are, and then before we re-energize, there's a lot of radio traffic that happens to make sure that anybody near any equipment is back away, so that when they energize, if there's still a problem, no one can get hurt, both our employees and our residents of Ames.
Yeah, you mentioned the 5 different divisions, and it seems like in an outage situation, you have all 5 of those working together, communicating, identifying the problem, and then working to resolve it. And I was mentioning, you know, crews are dispatched immediately. They're patrolling those lines. When we learn that people's power is out, we react immediately.
Absolutely. The information is immediately after hours. It's brought into the power plant. The power plant then has a screen listing all of the people that are out, and then that can be converted over to a map like we talked about before. Power plant then has the ability, we have somebody on call 24 hours a day from our line department that then can respond to that. They have the ability then, depending upon the scale and size of the outage, we have the ability to basically call in everyone. And if you remember, several years ago we had some pretty bad storms, straight line winds, and we had, I would say, all of our line crew was out. Our tech services were out, many of our engineers and most of our staff was out working that for several days.
So one final thing, how do you react to the idea that some people have suggested that the squirrels are working in a coordinated effort to take out power around the city?
You know, we had, actually, there were some outages, I want to say it was Monday morning or Sunday morning, where it was rather strange because we had an outage in one location, found it to be a squirrel. Within a half hour, there was outage in another location. So they're obviously having meetings. They're discussing where to hit us.
So
and
Sparky has kind of rallied the troops.
Sparky has a few friends, but
Okay.
no. We do have a process, and it takes time, and there is some cost associated with it, but you're able on many locations to put up what's called animal guarding, which is basically, I don't want to say like half moon or discs and things like that, that prevent an animal from touching one live piece of equipment with a different live or grounded piece of equipment, so that they don't become that short. And as we find locations and have the money, have the time, we are animal guarding or animal proofing many of our areas like that.
That seems like a good investment.
Yes, yes it is.
Well, the thing I wanted to ask you about was the conversion to natural gas. Many people know that the power plant at the end of Main Street has been producing power for Ames residents for more than 100 years, and it has been long a coal-generated power plant with the supplemental fuel of refuse-derived fuel from the resource recovery plant. The refuse-derived fuel will continue, but we're going to convert off of coal to natural gas.
Correct. Back in November of 2013, seems like a long time ago, we met with council, and council made the decision that to meet some of the new Environmental Protection Agency rules and things that are coming into place in 2016, that we would convert the power plant from coal to natural gas. Work is continuing. That's not an easy process. It's not a fast process. We'll be changing out the burners that are inside the power plant. The power plant, for the most part, from the outside, people won't even notice when we switch from coal to natural gas. We'll change out the burners. It is requiring some new piping to be put into the power plant. We're currently engineering that right now. It's going to require a new control system. So that's being developed, and they'll be starting to do that work this fall. And because the power plant uses a lot of natural gas, we're actually working with Alliant. Alliant is the gas provider, and they do provide some electricity here in the city, where Alliant will be building, I don't want to call it a dedicated line, but it'll be a major line that will come to the power plant that will bring that large volume of natural gas to us when we need it.
And are we still on schedule? At one point we had talked about January of 2017?
Right now, our requirement is to be converted from coal to natural gas by April of 2016. We're looking at, we want to make sure we have both of our large units available for the heat of the summer. So we're going to have both of them available once we get through the summer. Then our larger unit, Unit 8, will be taken offline and we'll begin that conversion process. And we believe that'll probably last 2 to 3 months. We want to get that converted, and there's another piece to it. The one thing that people may see is we have 2 cooling towers. They sit at the end of Main Street, and when they're running, you usually see a cloud of water vapor that comes out of one or the other, or both if they're both running. We're going to basically, both of those will be torn down, and they're going to be replaced with brand new fiberglass cooling towers. And that work will then also be continuing this fall. Ironically, we're going to take Unit 7 cooling tower down first so that it's all ready to go when we start the conversion.
So it's almost a year off. You really, by 2016, you'll have a lot of this work done.
We're hopeful. Our goal basically is to be converted well before April of 2016. If we can, our aggressive schedule would say January of 2016, but we want to have some room in there for anything unforeseen.
Well, I appreciate you giving us the update on this project. It's a huge project, and what you've said is a lot of people may not even know that it's going on. How will it affect electric rates?
A lot of that coal generation, from a cost standpoint, not talking on the environmental side, but from a cost standpoint, coal generation today is less expensive. When we start looking at some of the numbers based on today's fuel prices, natural gas prices, we believe there could be about a 5 to 8% price or rate increase, and that'll be passed on through what we call as our ECA, or energy cost adjustment. So we're not looking at a rate increase, but people's bills at the end of the day will be slightly higher based on natural gas generation.
And the conversion will probably happen in a low demand time for electricity, so
yes,
people will have some time to adjust.
Yep. And that's a very good point, because what we're planning on doing, we get through the summer, rates are typically higher. The demand for the energy is higher because air conditioners are running. In the fall, we'll do the conversion where price is one element, but we also want to make sure that we have the reliability to the system. And to have the reliability in the summer, that's why we want the generation available. Once we get through the summer, we can more easily take one unit off and carry the system with our other generator, and then also with the power lines that we've built over the years.
Well, one important thing to remind our viewers is that with our wind power, with our RDF, and with the conversion to natural gas, we will be reducing our carbon footprint and continue to look for ways to reduce that carbon footprint. So
absolutely,
that is the silver lining.
Yes, it is.
Well, Don, thanks for coming. It's always great to have you.
Have me anytime.
All right. If you want more information about any of the Ames Electric Services projects or some of their smart energy education and rebate programs, you can find that on our website at cityofames.org/smartenergy. Also, some other meetings for your calendar. Remember, the Indoor Aquatic Center input sessions are still going on. There are 2 more opportunities to attend one of those. We have Monday, June 1st at 6:30 p.m. and Thursday, June 4th at 9 a.m. at the Ames Public Library. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week for This Week in Ames.